Deep in the Amazon lives a monkey so rare, it has eluded all attempts to film it. Now there's a detective on its case.
It's a nice little clue. We know they're in this area.
He'll brave anything to find out more about it. Local Indians call it the English monkey, after its resemblance to sunburnt visitors.
The first thing you notice is its bright red face, and it's orange fur, and it just looks kind of crazy.
Scientists know it as the red Uakari. The reward for solving its many mysteries may be saving this rainforest. In 1995, a group of students were collecting insects for the Smithsonian Institution in the Peruvian Amazon. Mark Bowler was one of them, and what he saw that day would change his life.
While we were there, we were with a group of the local people who hunt in the region, and one day they came back to camp with this monkey they had shot, and it had bright orange fur, bright red face with these big bulging muscles on the head.
Mark recognized it as a red Uakari, one of the rarest of primates, and a monkey like no other on Earth.
I knew what it was, but I didn't know any more than that. It intrigued me, and it disturbed me because I knew it was endangered. So when I got back to England, I tried to read up on it and found that there was absolutely nothing known.
No one even knows how many red Uakaris are left in the wild. There's a great urgency to find out more about them, but despite their striking appearance, they are almost impossible to track down.
I thought it would be a great subject for a study, but there was no way you could do it. Nobody knew how to find these things or where they were.
Then 6 years later, Mark learned of a patch of rainforest deep in the Amazon, where the red Uakari was seen on a regular basis. It was the encouragement he needed. Since 2002, he's made repeated journeys into the heart of the forest to unlock this strange monkey's secrets. Each of Mark's expeditions begins at the city of E16. Nearly 500,000 people live here, yet it is effectively a frontier town. From here, boats and planes are the only way into the forest. Once he's upriver, Mark will need a boat like this on which to live and work. But it makes the journey very slow. First, they travel down the Amazon, along the Colombian border, then back up the Uakari River, skirting the Brazilian border. It will take 4 days to reach his destination, the Lago Preto Reserve.
It used to take me even longer. It was a pretty difficult journey, just a wooden, 6-meter-long wooden boat. I'm just testing out GPS, which is working just fine. We've got Peru on that side and Brazil on the other. And we've got the town of Benjamin just coming up, which is a Brazilian town marking the start of the Uakari River.
The Uakari is the most hazardous part of the journey. Drug smugglers, nervous soldiers, even hostile tribes in the nearby jungle. Two days to go, and Mark will reach Lago Preto, where the red monkey plays hide and seek with science. Dozens of rare species live in the Lago Preto, yet it is a tiny sanctuary, less than 3 square miles. Scientists consider it so precious that no camping is allowed. For the next few weeks, the boat is Mark and his team's home. 6 years' research and hundreds of treks into the forest have brought Mark closer to understanding the Uakari's strange appearance and how it survives here. But on this trip, he wants to find a particular Uakari family, to solve a mystery left over from last year.
We had this very strange year when in this group there were no babies at all. So why did they have no babies in that year, and would there be another year where there were no babies? Were they having babies every 2 years or every year?
And at the back of his mind, is the lower birth rate a reflection of deeper trouble?
It's great coming back at this time of year because the Uakaris give birth August through to about now, from November. So hopefully we'll see if they've got any babies.
Trying to find them is exhausting work in itself.
Red Uakaris live right in the upper canopy, almost higher than most other monkeys. They're always up there and they rarely come even to the lower canopy sometimes. So they're even drinking from tree holes up there. They don't come down to pools to drink or anything.
And in their search for food, they rarely stop moving.
It's the distance that kills you. You can walk all day and not find them sometimes. You can cover 20 kilometres and you've got a backpack on and it just saps your strength. And often you'll find them last thing in the day and you'll realise you've got to actually study them once you're there and you've worn yourself out looking for them.
Mark often hears them before he sees them.
Sometimes, when you haven't seen them for a little while, you're desperate to hear them. And every little bird that makes a little high-pitched noise, you twitch thinking it's going to be a Uakari. But when you do catch up with them, you hear the call, you know it's them. You know it's them. You get so tuned into their little calls. You sort of feel that they're there.
To catch up with the mothers and babies, Mark will need to use all his intuition. Everything about the red Uakari is a puzzle. Even its body seems to defy logic. Other monkeys have a long prehensile...
When they're upside down feeding on fruit, it does superficially look like a head. I've never seen a South American primate with a bright red bottom, so I don't think the head looks like a bottom myself. Now, when you observe Uakaris for a little while, you realise very quickly what it's doing with that tail. It's wagging it backwards and forwards when it calls, signalling to other monkeys. And also when the males do their displays, the tail will be held erect, almost like a dog. And I think the tail is short because it makes a nice, efficient signal that it can use all the time.
It's not just the Uakari's rear end that's efficient. Their powerful jaws crack open the shells of favourite fruits to get at the seeds inside.
They keep coming back to these peruma trees right up here, which are ripe right now. And they'll move off into the high forest and come back, or they'll go out into the flooded forest. But they'll always seem to come back to the stand of trees. They really like them. It's several groups coming through here as well, so it's not always the same groups. This group's quite tame, actually. They don't seem too bothered by us. Some groups are more habituated than others. I obviously followed them more during my study. And this group were quite chilled out. They're just looking down at us, just casually eating their paruma.
Mark hopes to find mothers with babies, but these are juveniles, 2- and 3-year-olds. Days go by without Mark finding the group he wants to check up on. But Mark won't give up, because the fate of this beautiful patch of forest may depend on what he finds out. It was Mark's mentor who in 1994 discovered this unique corner of the Peruvian Amazon.
Every time we stopped at Lago Preto, we noticed that there was always red Uakari monkey there. There was no other place that we would go in the Peruvian Amazon that we would see red Uakari monkey every time we went there. Why is that? Why are all the other areas places where you can see red Uakari for one day and then they disappear for 2 months?
Mark's work uncovered the answer. Lago Preto offers Uakaris all they need, all year round. It has high dry forest, lowland wet forest, and palm swamps.
And so from that, we decided that this was a place that required special conservation attention.
In 2006, to protect the red Uakari, Bodmer persuaded the government of Peru to ban logging in Lago Preto and create a wildlife preserve, the first of its kind in Peru. The site is managed by the Wildlife Conservation Society and England's Durrell Institute of Conservation and Ecology. Every year, large areas of Amazon rainforest are being destroyed and rare species lost. Safeguarding the Lago Preto forest protects more than just the red Uakari.
There's many, many other species that occur in Lago Preto. So while it was created for the red Uakari monkey, the Lago Preto Conservation Concession is actually much broader in terms of its impact on conservation actions for the future.
Scientists keep track of various key species in Lago Preto to see how they fare when freed from human impact. Biologist Maribel Richarte studies what locals call the river wolf. There are many more giant otters here than in other parts of the Amazon, where they are hunted for their skins. They live in large groups, and like wolves, hunt as a pack. They mostly catch fish, but also tackle crabs, snakes, and even small caiman. They also band together to confuse and then drive off predators. The caiman is the biggest predator out here. It grows up to 5 meters. In the dry season, they're confined to these shallow ponds, making it easier for biologist Alfredo dos Santos to find them. This one's only a juvenile, but it can still take off a finger. Like giant otters, caiman have been hunted for their skins. But now that Lago Preto is protected, the population is recovering. The caiman are breeding well. But what about the monkeys? It's day 5 of the Red Uakari expedition. Mark Bowler has yet to find any clues that might help him solve the riddle of their erratic birth rate. But at least he knows he's on the Uakari's trail.
This is Eschwellera. This is related to the Brazil nut family. This is really quite hard. It's got a thick shell. So you need a knife to get into them, but they open those with their teeth. And they're just after that little seed in there. So yeah, it's a nice little clue. We know they're in this area. And hopefully if we keep walking these trails, they'll loop back and come back here.
But first, Mark and his guide come across the remains of another creature's meal.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. Mata.
Se lo come al tigre.
Tigre?
Tigre.
This is a mata turtle shell, and it's got holes in it where jaguar's teeth have just pierced the entire shell. And it's ripped the whole top off the shell to get to this turtle inside. That's incredible. These turtles are great. They're really well camouflaged. You don't see them as often as the yellow-spotted turtles that live around here too.
Jaguars can't reach canopy-dwelling monkeys and pose little threat to humans. But Mark faces plenty of other hazards on the ground. Eventually, Mark stumbles across a familiar place.
Wow. I used to live here. Jungle's reclaiming it. Ever since the concession was awarded, we can't live on site, so we live on the boats, and we come in every day. So this is just reverting back to jungle. It's amazing how quickly all these trees spring up. This was the kitchen. We had no walls, and we just used to put our mosquito nets up inside and try and ignore all the jungle sounds waking us up in the night.
Operating from the research boat is much more expensive. It puts Mark under a lot more pressure. Time spent with the monkeys has become even more precious.
We've been following them for about an hour this morning, and this is a much bigger group than we had yesterday, and they're a little bit more nervous. We've been following them quite closely, but they keep looping around, and they're getting away from us now. We've just seen the last few of the adult males disappear into the thicket there. And we're hearing just a few little screams in the background there. Having a bit of an argument, and hopefully we can catch up with them if we follow those screams. Well, we've got a really big group up here. They're moving even further into the high forest, so we're trying to keep up. They're moving 50 metres parallel to the trail, so can't quite get a view at the moment, but we can see the branches moving. We got a few glimpses earlier. There's some big males up there and some females with young. So we're just trying to get a decent count as they go through to see how many of these females are actually carrying babies at the moment.
Photographs will help Mark identify and track both the mothers and the new arrivals.
Look, there she goes. She's got a really tiny baby.
Mark's lucky. Mothers usually hide their offspring under their arms. This is the first time red Uakari mothers and their newborns have been filmed in the wild. Everything they need is in the canopy: security, food, water. Uakaris live in complex societies. Mark is just starting to understand how they function. He works like a detective, recording everything he sees. And he's discovering that Uakaris differ from other monkeys in surprising ways.
Grooming in monkeys is basically a social activity. You can use it as a measure of the social bond between two animals. In most monkeys, you see a lot of grooming. That any time they're resting, they're also grooming. In the Uakaris, you don't get quite so much, it seems. And when you get it, it'll be between a female and an older juvenile, probably her offspring. When you do find the females, they're not just with one alpha male. You'll find they're with a team of alpha males almost, which is very strange. It doesn't happen in many other monkeys.
Red Uakaris travel in a procession. Juveniles are followed by mothers and babies, and then big males. But after this main group comes a second group, mostly made up of young males.
We call that the bachelor group, and they'll follow the other group around. These groups will get a bit close, and the males who are with the females
would certainly explain all the scars they bear.
It's important to identify individual monkeys so that we can see what their relationships are with other monkeys. One of the ways we can get to the bottom of this is to identify these males by taking these photos with the scars and the blotches of pigment that some of them have, and seeing if there's a relationship between these males and some of the other guys. So what I'm doing now is I've got this huge telephoto lens, and I'm trying to get pictures. And if you get a really good picture, you can mark down the scars. Some of the males have blotches of pigment even, which are really good indicators that you're getting the same individual every time. So they'll have these little birthmarks almost. So Butcher's got a little brown spot there, and then I've got one of the huge sort of birthmark around his forehead who I call Gorbachev. So that if we go on and study their social behaviour, we'll be able to tell who's who and who's friends with who.
But the baby count is taking up most of Mark's time right now.
We had a really good day this morning. We were following a group, quite a big group, and there were lots of females and babies in the group, all sticking together, a range of ages. So we had very young ones whose faces had barely started to turn pink, just held on the hip of the mothers. There were lots of pictures of these mothers jumping these gaps with the babies, hanging on asleep, with the head poking up between their legs, grabbing hold of whatever they can, hand on the tail, leg flailing around into midair. Brilliant.
Remarkably, every adult female in the group has a new baby. So now Mark has to work out why babies 1 year and not another. Mark thinks that the richness of their diet may have something to do with it. Last year, there was plenty of fruit, hence a good crop of babies now. But a shortage of food leads to more than just a lower birth rate. The monkeys may leave Lago Preto to forage and find themselves in forest where hunting monkeys is allowed. So while Mark's here, he also wants to travel upriver to check the progress of a novel project initiated by Richard Bodmer.
The red Uakari monkey is a very unique species because it's rare and it's only found in these small pockets. Those reflect very intact forests full of biodiversity.
Bodmer has studied the impact of hunting on the local mammals.
And what we found is animals such as the peccary, the deer, the agouti, those animals can withstand a lot of hunting. They reproduce very quickly, they have lots of young, and the people can hunt them and their populations continue. Other animals such as the red Uakari monkey, the woolly monkey, the lowland tapir, they reproduce very slowly. And if you start hunting those animals, those populations crash.
The village of Nueva Esperanza is working with the Wildlife Conservation Society to find a way of hunting in a more sustainable way.
The local people in Esperanza work very closely with WCS and actually write down everything they shoot. And they have the date, the sex of the animal.
Biologist Alfredo dos Santos regularly reviews the hunting log. The goal isn't to end hunting, just rethink it.
They don't have a supermarket they can go to buy food. Their supermarket is a forest. So we're working with the people in order to manage their hunting in a way that they never lose that supermarket, that the animals are always out there. And the only way to have those animals always out there is to have an intact forest. So this is actually a way to help conserve the Amazon forests.
We have a wonderful planet, at least in my Amazon. We have so many things to protect and so many things that are disappearing every day. Everybody should understand that we can't just lose everything we have.
But just as local people are getting the message, a new threat to red Uakaris has emerged. All around the protected areas of Lago Preto, loggers are moving in.
We know the red Uakari is a threatened species, but it's always very difficult to justify the conservation of one species. These forests are very valuable for timber and for oil, and Peru doesn't have a particularly wealthy economy.
Red Uakaris are being hunted by underpaid and underfed loggers. and many other endangered Amazonian animals are ending up in the markets of Iquitos. Hunting bushmeat is legal in Peru. For many in this poor country, it's the only way to eat. For those creatures which breed slowly, every animal for the pot threatens the survival of the entire species.
So this is Belen Market in Iquitos, where a lot of the bushmeat that's hunted in the Amazon ends up, including monkeys sometimes. And the biggest problem we have in the forest on the Uakari River is hunting. So we don't want the red Uakari monkeys ending up in markets like this.
Just 10 miles from Iquitos, Mark visits someone who is trying to prevent this from happening. Gudrun Sperrer runs a butterfly farm, but she takes in all kinds of animals.
He brought the monkey here. We are educating the people, so people from here, the children get to know the animals, see them free and maybe start liking them. And people from other countries learn about them and maybe don't get the idea that it would be great to have them as a pet.
The rescued Uakaris give Mark a rare chance to examine the English monkey's face up close.
The colour of the face comes from the specialised blood vessels just under the skin. So if you push the blood out of the blood vessels, the skin goes white. It turns red again when the blood comes back in. So when these monkeys get sick, they also go very pale. In Uakaris, instead of having an alpha male, which is clearly the strongest, and which is easy for the females to choose, Uakaris are in these groups of males. So the female has to have a different mechanism to choose the best male. So they're using the red face as an indicator of health to pick the healthiest monkey for their mate. The redder the face, the healthier the monkey.
Back at Lago Preto, Mark has recorded a baby boom. Every adult female he saw, 6 in a group of 30, had babies with them. It backs up his theory that a good fruit season leads to a higher birth rate. To predict next season's results, he needs to come back when the Uakari's favorite fruit, the aguaje, ripens. It means returning at the most challenging time of year. Each spring, the Amazon and its tributaries rise up to 7 meters. So much water overflows the banks, the Earth's crust sinks more than 3 inches. But it's all part of the nourishing cycle of life at Lago Preto. Towards the end of the rainy season, the red Uakaris move from the high canopy to find the fruits of the lowland palm swamps, aguaje. 6 months after his last expedition, Mark is back to learn more about the Uakari's reliance on these special fruits. But this season is not off to a great start. The aguaje is late to ripen. Disappointing for Mark because it means the Uakaris are still scattered throughout the forest.
That's what an aguaje fruit should look like, but they haven't touched them at all. These are unripe, so the ones they're eating are these small, deformed-looking things which are ripening early. And you see they've gone the nice yellow that aguaje fruits go. But hopefully soon, these nice big ones will ripen up.
Until then, Mark will have to pursue them as best he can.
Instead of walking underneath the group of monkeys, I have to paddle. That's actually really nice at times because you can sort of cruise along underneath them. You're silent. You can cruise right up to things. But then the monkeys will take a turn and they'll go into this thicket and you'll have to fight your way through with a really heavy canoe. It gets a bit shallow, so you can barely paddle. You can't get out and walk.
The Uakaris have no problem getting around. While waiting for the aguaje to ripen, Mark finds them dining on unexpected treats.
What we've noticed, particularly just recently, is they're eating a lot of insects. When they find a really hairy caterpillar, they'll rub it really vigorously, knock all the hairs off until it's bald. They'll stretch it a bit, and then they'll pop it in their mouth.
Hard on the heels of the Uakari group are squirrel monkeys. They seem to be snatching insects which the Uakaris have kicked up. The larger Uakaris accept them because there's no competition between them. With the largest canines of any monkey in the Amazon, Uakaris can eat things the squirrel monkeys can't.
Red Uakari monkeys specialise in opening hard-shelled fruits and eating the seeds inside. And this is fairly obvious when you look at the teeth. They've got these big canine teeth which they use to pierce fruit. The males have these big bulging muscles, and they also have muscle masses under the jaw, and they power the teeth, and they have incredible power. They open these fruits that I need a machete to get into.
Mark thinks their big teeth also allows them to punch above their weight.
You get these howler monkeys who are 2 times the size at least, maybe 3 times the size. And they come along, and the Uakaris will have a go at them. And the howler monkey will be up in the other direction. They seem to be a bit scared. It's possibly because they got these big, powerful teeth.
With the monkeys not settling down on the aguaje to feed, Mark spends his first 4 days chasing them across the reserve. But this does lead him to a group of bachelors, a social setup which Mark definitely wants to know more about.
The social behaviour of the Uakari is basically unknown. We're only just starting to find out little bits about the social behaviour of this monkey. One of the things we found out is that when the monkeys are in the flooded forest, they forage in much smaller groups. And this is because the fruit here is abundant and more widely dispersed, and the monkeys spread out widely into their small groups to feed. What that means is you very often get all male groups. We call them the bachelor groups, which is actually quite unusual for a South American monkey. The males are very good friends and aren't fighting each other too much over the females. What you do see, though, is groups of males fighting other groups of males. You'll find a male will actually wait for his friends before he starts chasing another male off. And it's a very intriguing situation which we're only starting to understand. This little guy has just come down into the lower canopy, basically hiding from the other big males because they've been chasing each other around here and fighting a bit. I see one with a cut on his hand, actually.
Here's the big guy. Hanging and swinging may be a declaration of dominance. But much of what they do remains lost in translation. Mark can read some of their body language.
We've just been watching an adult male up there urine washing, which is when they urinate up their fronts and rub it all in with their hands and get it all in their fur. And that might sound like a disgusting habit, but it's actually got an important function. It spreads their own scent on their body, which tells other Uakaris who they are and that they're a dominant male. It's also got a visual element. The males puff their fur out, they have their tail held high while they're doing it, which says to other males, and possibly the females too, that they're in charge. Swinging backwards and forward is producing a huge amount of motion. It's a massive signal just to say, here we are, and here, we're really big, we're strong, we got the females, and keeping other males away, we think. Another display we see very commonly is this branch shaking. Sometimes they'll have a bit of a shake of the branches, saying, we don't really want you under there, move back a little bit, and they'll shake the branches at us. Often we'll have quite big branches come down, because they seem to know which ones are rotten, and they'll jump on them and shake them and leap off at their last moment. Have to be a bit careful here. These have just come down from the canopy. The Uakaris are getting a bit excited up there, jumping on all sorts of dead branches and bringing them down, shaking the branches. And I'm not entirely sure if it's directed at me today or whether they're just excited amongst themselves.
Following a bachelor group during the wait for the aguaje has been an unexpected bonus. Meanwhile, the odd Uakari investigates if the aguaje are ripe. Not yet. So Mark has to continue chasing them right across the Lago Preto.
Wow, this is it. This is the end of the line. The monkeys have gone right into the flooded forest, and we can't follow now. We've left the canoes back there when the monkeys entered the high forest, but they've headed straight back into the flooded forest and left me stranded out here.
It's exhausting and frustrating. All he needs is for the Uakaris to stay in one place long enough for him to learn more about them. Eventually, Mark picks up their trail again, and the sense that their diet might be changing.
What they've been doing is moving into the high forest instead of staying into the flooded forest to feed. And that suggests to me that the fruit's running out in this forest here, and they're testing the aguaje fruits on the edges of the palm swamps.
Mark follows up on his hunch and treks several miles to a promising stand of aguaje palms. At last. The 33-meter-tall aguaje palm is laden with ripe, vitamin-rich fruit.
Excellent, look at that.
But not all the palms are as laden as this one. Overall, the aguaje crop is poor, so this might result in fewer Uakari babies next year. However, the monkey's habits do make it easier for other forest creatures to thrive.
Red Uakaris are quite messy eaters. Typically, they'll eat the best part of the fruit, and once it takes too much effort to get the rest off, they'll drop it and get to the next one, because the next one's on a big bunch right next to it. So what you'll find is the floor below will be littered with half-eaten aguaje fruit. And big rodents like paca and agouti will come through and eat those. And if there's any left, you'll get big herds of peccary and even tapir coming through to eat the last ones. Between May and August, when the aguaje's ripe, these aguajal palm swamps become a hive of activity. So it's a real focus for life in this forest.
For Mark, it's a luxury to have the monkeys in one place long enough to study them. His photographs identify who's who and how they organize themselves when they feed. He can also see just how reliant they are on this one type of food.
So we know they're evolved to eat these very hard-shelled fruits, but here at Lago Preto at least, they're eating a lot of aguaje palm, and it's very, very important for them. We're at the base of this aguaje palm, where the Uakaris have been feeding pretty much all morning, and they finally found some really nice ripe aguaje. There should be some nice yellow flesh underneath. Ooh, and that really is quite ripe. It's got a taste all of its own, really. You can compare it almost to very ripe pumpkin, but it's much sweeter. And it's very creamy. You can almost taste the fat content. And it's that high fat content that makes this so important to the Uakaris and to all the other animals in the forest that eat this. I can take it or leave it myself.
But back in Iquitos, Mark's already seen that local people love the taste. They make drinks from it, even use it to flavor ice cream. Unfortunately, to get the fruit, the whole tree is cut down.
And it's actually a big conservation problem because the people in this area love it as well. The aguaje is very depleted because people are chopping down these palms to find the fruit and sell it in the markets.
Mark's research shows that aguahi can make up more than 50% of the Uakari's diet and feeds many other jungle animals. So local people are now encouraged to harvest the fruit sustainably, the way the monkeys do. Mark knows that his hard-won knowledge of the red Uakari's feeding patterns, breeding cycles and social structure will mean little if he can't persuade the Peruvian people of the monkey's value.
The red Uakari lives in this area of amazing biodiversity. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of timber here and potentially oil. So the difficulty for us is giving the Uakari a value, giving biodiversity a value that can match that of the natural resources. And that's something we need to work with the Peruvian people to achieve.
There is progress. Conservation groups, together with the Peruvian government, have plans to link Lago Preto to another protected area 120 miles away. The red Uakari was once described as a monkey of a most grotesque appearance. But the so-called English monkey has come to symbolize the intrinsic beauty and magic of this last great rainforest.